tiny, coming down sort of to the right of your map, there's a bit of a smaller blue line that goes sort of from the middle down to the bottom right. That's the Rideau Canal, which I'll talk about later, but you can see it is right in the middle of the map and right in the heart of downtown. And what's unique about our downtown too is there's so much you can see. If you're staying downtown or living downtown, there's a lot you can see by walking. I do walk a bit fast, but I can walk from one end of this map to the other in about 30 minutes, let's say. And in this area, there's a war museum, there's our Parliament buildings, there's a National Gallery of Canada, the Rideau Canal, like I mentioned. There's a big shopping center. There's the Byward Market area, which I'll talk about. And just across the river, and there's another brown spot you can see that says the Canadian Museum of History. And that's one of our most visited museums in Canada. So yeah, you can really see a lot just by walking in Ottawa, which is quite nice. I talked about the Parliament building. So this is what you can see here. So this is again where our government, this is where they meet to, pass bills and make laws. So now, at the moment, our Parliament buildings are under construction. They're quite old, and there's a lot of things that need to be replaced and fixed, including plumbing and electricity. So it's quite a big job. But what they did is they moved the main building with the clock on it is the building that's under construction. So they moved, there's sort of two flanking buildings, like a building on the left and right of that building. And they moved some of the people and some of the offices to the building on the west, the west of it. And then another location is where they moved some of the other people, and they made those two new spots, those temporary spots, new visiting places. So you can still, like that picture on the top left, that is the temporary location for the next 10 years for the House of Commons. So you can, and they still do tours there. So even though the main building is closed down, you can still have tours of Parliament. And it's still, you can still see the clock, and a person goes up there still. I'm assuming at one point they'll might have to stop for a while. There's a person that goes up to the very top of that tower and they play a really unique sort of piano instrument, and you can hear it throughout the whole downtown core, and they play different songs on it. It's really nice. So this is the Rideau Canal. So you can see in the background where there's a little boat in the water, that's that big river I was showing you. So across the river on the other side of that bridge is the Quebec side. And you can see coming up towards us, that's the canal I mentioned. And there's about 8 locks. So it is, the river is actually lower than the canal. So to get down, obviously it would be a pretty dangerous fast ride, like a rapids, to get down if there was no locks. So the locks basically is a way that they slowly lower the boats down to the right level. It takes a little while. It's not quick, but it's a really unique experience to see. And people can, as you can see, like there's different boats. People can rent their own boats. And the canal in the wintertime, it becomes the world's largest skating rink. And that's that picture you can see in the bottom left corner. So in the wintertime, people do go skating here. It's quite a long canal. It's like 7.8 kilometers. So you can really, it's a really nice, beautiful skate throughout the city. So Ottawa, we are a 4-season destination. So this is Ottawa in the spring, which is what we are now. And obviously these two, they're not this big, the tulips. This is a bit exaggerated, but they're quite pretty. And I'll play a little video. I'm hoping it'll work. So what it is, the reason we have tulips, I'll have to check on my time here. Yeah, we're okay. We have in World War II, the Dutch royal family came to Canada to be safe the Queen actually gave birth to one of her daughters here. And then once the war was over, they then went back to Holland, to the Netherlands, and ever since then, to thank Canada for everything they did for us, not only in Ottawa but also during the war, they have since sent us millions of tulips every year. So that's why our cities has tons of tulips every year during spring. Oh, there we go. And we are also very active in the winter. We do celebrate winter with lots of different activities. I may not say that. We also have, unfortunately, it was virtual last year, but we also do have a Winterlude Festival, which is a great, again, people skating on the canal, like you can see. And we have different little bonhommes that come out with the kids, and there's ice sculpture competitions, and it's a quite lovely time as well. And this is talking some of the museums. This is our Canadian Museum of History, like I mentioned, that was across the river. Again, one of the most visited museums in Canada, and it's more about the history of Canada's people. This is the National Gallery of Canada. It has the largest collection of Canadian artwork. This is the Canadian Museum of Nature. It's more the animals, the dinosaurs, the flora and fauna of Canada. It's one of my favorite museums too. This is the Canadian War Museum, more about Canada's history and different wars, talking about peace as well. We also have different museums that are great for families, like a Science and Tech Museum and Aviation Museum, Agriculture Museum. Yeah, just lots of different, tons of museums. If you like museums, we're a great city for that. But even if you don't like museums, my brother's not a big fan, you'll see lots of other activities you can do. We also have a Royal Canadian Mint. This isn't where they make money that you use every day. That's done in Winnipeg. But this is where they make special collector money. And you can see them making the money here. We also have lots of Indigenous experiences to see in the city. We have actually a company called Indigenous Experiences where you can see performances. They're actually right now situated right on the same land as the History Museum is, and you can buy tickets to see them through there. We also have, throughout the different museums, we have Indigenous displays as well. And there's also, not very far away in Montebello, Quebec, which is about a 40-minute drive, there's a place called Park Omega, which you can see on the top left, and that's where you can drive through and different animals come right up to your car, and they're only Canadian animals. There's no elephants or anything like that. It's just animal, bears and wolves and things like that. So it's Canadian, even buffalo, which is great, or bison, I think. I mentioned the Byward Market area. So it's sort of a 5-by-5 block area, and it's one of the oldest areas of Ottawa. So you can still see some really historic stone buildings, but it's also where they have a lot of unique boutique stores, lots of great restaurants and pubs and things like that. In downtown, very close to the Byward Market, is a big, huge department store shopping, but a lot of people like the smaller stores. The top left, beaver tails, that actually started in Ottawa. It's not a real beaver's tail, don't worry. It's just a pastry, like a whole wheat pastry that's fried, and it's in the shape of a beaver's tail, and they have lots of great flavors on there, like chocolate and things like that. So there's great ways of seeing the city. We have helicopter rides. We have like old World War II open cockpit plane rides of the city. There's hop on, hop off bus tours. There's different kind of boat tours on the river and on the canal. This one in red you can see here is actually one of those ones that it's both a boat and a bus. So on the land it drives around, and when it goes in the water it becomes a boat. We have haunted walk tours, history tours, bicycle tours, even food tours. For adventure, we have zip lining. You can go kayaking or canoeing on the canal. We even have whitewater rafting right on the river. You can see Parliament Hill in the background of that top picture. That's whitewater rafting in the city. So it's not as if an hour west of us is the bigger rafting, like more excitement. This is a bit calmer, but more my speed. You don't follow the boat, but you still scream when the waves come at you, but it's quite unique. So you can see a museum in the morning, go to your hotel, let's say, change, and then go whitewater rafting in the afternoon. So it's quite thrilling. And then we're also a beautiful city in the fall with all the changing colors. And oh, I'm not gonna do that. Yeah, and that's our city in a whirlwind. I think I'm okay time-wise. Yeah, okay, that's good. Does anyone have any questions though? I'll stop sharing my screen too.
That was amazing. Thank you very much, Nicole.
Yes. You're welcome.
Friends, do you have questions about life in Ottawa, some of the places that Nicole's mentioned, or just any comments that you would like to share? We welcome you to put them either in the chat, or you're also welcome to turn your microphone on or turn your camera on and ask questions as well. If there's something you've wanted to know about Ottawa, feel free to ask. Maybe I will ask a question to begin, because I know sure. For some of us, we can be really shy. I am curious, do you know how many people often visit Ottawa every year? I'm curious about how many.
I do not have that information, unfortunately. I don't have the stat. I'm not a stats person, but I just know we are quite busy pretty much throughout the year too, which is unique. But obviously we're a bit busier. Actually, compared to some cities in Canada, some of them are busier in the summer. We tend to be a bit a slightly more busy in the spring and fall. We are a government city, so typically there's a lot of, and there's a lot of people that, and we're also popular for conferences. So a lot of people don't like to have a conference in the summer because that's when people are on their family vacations. So we tend to be a bit busier in the spring and fall for that reason, but summer as well though. Yeah, in fact, summer's my favorite season.
Well, and that was also going to be, I guess, the question is, it really does seem like Ottawa is a place where there's something always happening year round.
Yes, definitely.
No matter what season you're visiting, there's definitely lots to do.
Yeah, obviously during this period right now, not so much, but yeah, once things get back to normal,
Yeah.
they'll go back to that.
Yeah, pre or post COVID.
Right,
Definitely.
right.
Have you grown up in Ottawa?
Pretty much. I was born in the East Coast on the Maritimes, but Ottawa's been home since I was about 6 years old, so it's pretty much home.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And what would you say then is your favorite thing about living in Ottawa? What's the life like? Are people like?
Oh, I find them very friendly, and it's definitely a city for nature lovers. It's the city is surrounded both downtown and downtown. There's tons of parks and green spaces, and again that canal that runs through this heart of the city. I'm luckily enough, I don't live downtown anymore, but I can walk to work, and I walk along the canal to get to work, which is lovely. So it's a great place for people that like to walk and get in nature and do lots of activities. Yeah, and I also am a museum lover, so obviously all those museums in town are great too.
That's amazing. Thank you. AJ, I see your hands up.
Yes, thank you. So Nicole, and I've never been to Ottawa myself, but also for the benefit of our students, could you tell us, is Ottawa a small city, a big city? How many people live there?
We're about 1 million, but we were smaller before. But kind of similar to Toronto, there was all these outside like areas surrounding us that kind of became part of Ottawa. So now we're kind of like the greater Ottawa area, and that's when we became 1 million people. We locally still call those communities by their original names, like there's Canada and Orleans, but now they're technically part of our city. But yeah, I mean, as I said, I live in the south part of the city, but I can walk to work in about 45 minutes. So it is still pretty compact compared to other cities, I would think.
Thank you.
Jean has wrote a question in the chat and has asked, how far is Ottawa from Waterloo? I think it's about 5 hours, if I'm correct, 5 to 6 hours, depending on how fast you drive.
How far is Waterloo from Toronto? Because I know we're about 4.5 hours, 5 hours to Toronto. So
yeah, about an hour, I would say. So
okay.
Probably about the same, yeah.
Okay.
Again, it depends on how fast you can drive.
Yes.
Yeah, so about 4.5, 5 hours. That sense. Felix is asking in the chat, what would be, Nicole, your favorite place or tourist or recreation like destination in Ottawa? If you had to say, do this, what would it be?
For sure, it depends on your interest though. I mean, like one of the museums for sure, like again, the History Museum tends to be the most popular, but if you like art more, than the National Gallery would be the place. So it depends on your interest, but a museum for sure. And after that, I would say the whitewater rafting. It is a bit new for us, but it's one of my favorite things to do in the city. So yeah, I would say, like I said before, a museum in the morning, whitewater rafting in the afternoon. If you have a day, if you have longer, yeah, you can easily spend 3 days in our city with lots of things to do. So yeah.
Great, thank you. Any other questions, friends? Felix says thanks for that.
You're welcome.
Wonderful. Any other questions? We wonder about Ottawa, or we wonder about any of the places or spots within Ottawa.
I have a question. So Nicole, I was looking at your downtown map, and that was great, but I couldn't see Rideau Hall. Is that quite close to the Parliament building?
On the map we were showing, it would have been a bit off to the right. Like it wasn't on that map we were looking at, but it would be. Okay. It's not walkable. You could do it by bicycle or by car, or the hop on hop off bus tour goes there too. Driving, it would be from where the map left off another maybe 5-10 minute drive. It's not too much further out, but
Okay.
it's kind of a nice drive, though. It's along that river. It's along the river that
Okay.
separates the two provinces. So it's a nice drive. It's just, it is a little ways down. You go past, to get there, you have to go past the Prime Minister's house as well. So.
Okay. Right.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you.
And that's kind of a good question, is the Prime Minister doesn't live in Parliament Hill.
No, that's just their office.
Think of the White House and the president, for example, there, right? But the Prime Minister doesn't live in Parliament Hill, right?
No. Their office, and actually technically he has another office. His main office is actually across the street in a sort of a brown brick building across the street from Parliament Hill. That's his main office. But when he has meetings, he'll go to Parliament building, and I'm sure he has an office there too. But yes, his home, and actually technically there is a home that's designated for the Prime Minister, but it's again aging and needs some repairs. So at the moment, I think there was maybe the roof was leaking or something. So technically at the moment, he and his family are actually living on the grounds in a house that's on the grounds of Rideau Hall that you just mentioned. So they're actually living there instead. So I don't know if any of you have seen, maybe not, but during the pandemic, our Prime Minister kept coming out to talk to the press from this building. That's where he's been living all this time. He's lived in the Prime Minister house that's under repairs. He's lived there before because his dad was the Prime Minister at one time, and he was a little kid when his dad was the Prime Minister. So he lived in that house. So he's not missing it. It's fine.
That's great. This is a great question that Jean is asking: is does the city of Ottawa have good transportation? Good.
That is a good question. And we do have like a bus transportation. We call it OC Transpo, but actually it is a good timing because we actually are improving our system. We just maybe a year ago, we have now light rail trains that go from east to west, and we are now in the process quite quickly of creating a second line of it that goes actually down all the way to the airport. So it's not, once that's finished, you can get all the way from the airport to downtown by light rail train. But at the moment, the one that they've just that's already completed a year ago, it does go from our train station to downtown. So you can, if you come in by train, you can easily get I think it's about 3 or 4 stops right to downtown on the light rail system.
That's amazing. Thank you. Yes, and Jung says thank you as well.
You're welcome.
Wonderful. Are there any final questions we have for Nicole before we get back on our school bus and start traveling again? Are we good, friends? Give us a couple of seconds in case anyone is typing. Wonderful. Okay, well, thank you so much, Nicole, for
You're welcome.
Time to come and speak with us and to share your wisdom and knowledge of the beautiful city of Ottawa. I have visited a few times, and it is definitely, I say to newcomers to Canada, it is a city you must visit on your travels in Canada, because it really does hold so much of the history of our country. And it's our nation's capital. And so it's kind of the home of Canada in many ways. So thank you again, Nicole.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of the presentations.
Thank you, Nicole. Okay, friends, I'm going to share my screen here because I actually have a question that we also want to ask you about. So Nicole mentioned it in her presentation, the delicious beaver tails. And one of the really cool facts about beaver tails is that they really got their start for the most part in Ottawa. Now, beaver tails, if you look at these pictures that I have on the screen here of the different types of food, what a beaver tail is it's a batch of dough that is stretched by hand, and it's designed, why we call it a beaver tail is because the shape of it looks kind of like the shape of the tail of a beaver, which we know is a popular Canadian animal. But what we do is it's a stretch of dough that's stretched out, and then it's deep fried in canola oil. And what we do is then we serve it hot with, and it's drizzled with butter and also your favorite choice of toppings. Personally, for me, I'm very traditional on mine, where I would love always cinnamon and sugar and apples. Even the apple pie is probably my classic favorite version of a beaver tail. But nowadays you can get it with, feels like almost anything on top of it. They have Nutella spread with bananas. You could get it with Oreos on top of vanilla icing. You could get it, oh, I heard just last year there was one even with poutine, that you could get a poutine on top of a beaver tail. You're gonna need to do a lot of walking around Ottawa if you eat that. Not the most healthy choice, but they are delicious, friends. So I wanted to share that with you. And I have a little bit of a trivia question. You had to guess, when do you think the first beaver tail was commercially produced? I'm gonna launch a poll here. I want you to guess on the poll, what year do you think the first beaver tail tree was first created? Is it 1945, 1990, 1978, or 1967? I hope everyone can see the poll. We've got about 9 votes in so far. I'll give you a couple seconds. Don't Google the answer. Wonderful, we got 12 votes in so far. Okay, we'll give you 2 more seconds. If you haven't voted, make sure you cast your vote. Okay, close it. 3, 2, 1. Let's see who got it. The number 1 vote looks like 1978, followed by 1967, very close, or 1945, and nobody voted 1990. Your correct answer is C, 1978. So congratulations to those who voted. What's really neat is in 1978, the first beaver tail was introduced at a craft fair in the small town of Killaloe in Ontario. And then 2 years later, the first beaver tail store opened in Ottawa in the Byward Market that Nicole mentioned in 1980. And so Ottawa often has it as the home of the beaver tails because that's where the store began and where it begins. But nowadays, you can also visit many different locations across Canada, and you can purchase them at different things. Often, one of my favorite places to get it is when the beaver tails truck comes and visits different festivals throughout Canada. And often when you go to many festivals, they will have food trucks that are available. And at those food trucks, then that's when you can enjoy a delicious beaver tail at the beaver tails truck. So when you are in Canada or you visit Canada eventually after COVID, I want you to try a beaver tail, friends. They are amazing, not healthy, but super, super delicious. If you've tried one before, make sure to put it in the chat and tell us what your favorite beaver tail would be. I'd love to know what you think. They are absolutely delicious. Okay. With that said, we are going to move along here. So we are here in Ottawa right now, but we got to get back on our bus, start getting everything ready because we're going to be moving soon over to Manitoba. I'm looking to see if we are going to be joined by our friend Aaron. I don't know if I see him in the chat yet. If not, Aaron, are you there? If not, we're gonna maybe do a backtrack later and come visit after that because he might be a few minutes behind us getting connected. But if we look on this map, what would normally happen is you would have to travel from Ottawa all the way through to Ontario to get to the province of Manitoba. You're actually going to be driving through my hometown to get there, which is Thunder Bay. Right? If you can see my cursor on the map, Thunder Bay is located up in Northern Ontario. So you would drive through it here to be able to then visit Manitoba. And so we're going to soon be then joined by Aaron McMahon, who is our travel counselor and distribution administrator from Travel Manitoba. I don't think he's yet joined us in the Zoom chat. So what we're going to do is we're going to put him maybe at the end if he's able to join us in a few minutes. So hopefully he's joined us then. And so what I'm actually going to do is call upon AJ in the meantime. And AJ is going to be our next presenter. And so to visit AJ, we got to then travel from Manitoba all the way to the west, all the way to the very end of the coast to visit Vancouver Island. Now, AJ, let's be honest, you're not actually technically right now in Vancouver.
No, I'm not on Vancouver Island right now. No, I am in Waterloo. But I'll explain why Vancouver Island is special to me, and it was home for a long time. Do you want me to go ahead and start now?
Absolutely. So welcome AJ, who will be sharing his experience with Vancouver Island. Hi, AJ. Let me stop sharing.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Ryan. Wonderful. Thank you. Yeah. So hi, everyone. I've met many of you before, but in case you haven't met me, my name is AJ Dixon. I'm a student advisor with the Renison English Language Institute. I'm currently in beautiful Southwestern Ontario, in Waterloo. And I love Southwestern Ontario. It is a lovely place, but I am going to be talking about a place that's near and dear to my heart, and that is Victoria and Vancouver Island in British Columbia. So why is this place special to me? Well, I'm originally from Alberta. I was born in Calgary, but often throughout my childhood, we visited my grandparents who lived in Victoria. So we go often on holidays to visit there. And then I moved around Canada and the US a lot, but I was quite close to my grandparents. So I moved to Victoria rather, like all Albertans do eventually. We always end up in BC somehow. I moved to Victoria to be with my grandparents and also to enroll in the University of Victoria, where I did my bachelor's degree. I also met my lovely wife Rachel there, and I lived there 13 years. So out of all the places I've lived there the longest actually. So in many ways it's kind of home. It's a lovely part of the world. So in this presentation, I'll talk a little bit about Victoria, Vancouver Island, where it is, and some of the neat things you can see and do there. Okay, and I should say at any point, my internet is notoriously unreliable while I'm presenting things. So if something cuts out or you don't catch something, please just let me know in the chat, or I'm sure Ryan can let me know. Okay, so where is Vancouver Island? So we have a map here, and where's Victoria? Victoria is a city on Vancouver Island, and we have a map here, and it's on the Pacific coast, so the west coast of Canada, of North America. It's not the same place as the city of Vancouver. So most of you have heard of Vancouver. It's a very big city in British Columbia. Millions of people live there. Vancouver Island and Victoria are not the same place. They're close, but it's not the same place. So as we see on the map here, Vancouver Island is this big island off the coast of the mainland British Columbia. And there is no bridge. That stretch of water there is very deep and very wide. That's the Strait of Georgia. And so you either have to take a ferry or a plane. And you see a picture of a float plane there, or you can take a regular plane to get to Victoria and Vancouver Island. Vancouver Island is quite big. It's about 32,000 square kilometers. So it's about the same size as Taiwan. So it's very, very big place. Those ferries there, that trip from the mainland to Victoria, that takes about an hour and a half. And that's not a small ship either. That vessel can hold about 300 cars and 2,000 people. So it should have room for the bus, I think, the school bus, so we should be okay. You'll see also Victoria's quite close, down in the lower right corner, it's close to Seattle as well. So a lot of people travel back and forth to Seattle in the United States. And it goes hundreds of kilometers up to the northwest to Port Hardy on the northwest tip of the island. About 500,000 people live on Vancouver Island. The majority of them live in and around the city of Victoria, which is where I live, on Vancouver Island. So Victoria is the capital city, of British Columbia. So that's the center of government in British Columbia, the province of British Columbia. The city is named after Queen Victoria, who was Queen of the British Empire when it was at its greatest extent, so late 1800s, early 1900s. So the city was named in her honor. And because of that connection and other historical reasons, which I'll explain, Victoria is quite well known for its British culture. The population of Greater Victoria is approximately 370,000 people. So it's actually about the same size as Kitchener-Waterloo. So it's comparable size. Maybe a difference compared to Kitchener-Waterloo is it's a bit of a milder climate. It's called the City of Gardens, and we have a picture here of the Parliament buildings in the Inner Harbor. So when I say mild, it's not tropical, I'm not going to kid you, but in the wintertime, the average temperature rarely drops below freezing. So a bad, quote unquote, bad winter, we might have 2 weeks of snow. So that would be a bad winter. But there are a few winters where we never saw snow. So most of the time, because of the Pacific Ocean right there, that keeps the climate relatively mild. And in the summertime, it doesn't get too hot either. Again, because the ocean provides a sort of moderating influence. So it's rare for houses to have air conditioning. Temperatures are usually the low 20s. Sorry, I'm seeing things pop up in the chat. Yeah, I knew, Ryan, you'd like that point. I'm surprised you haven't moved there yet. Ryan's not a fan of winter. So maybe Ryan will end up in Victoria one day, who knows. So what do people do in Victoria? Tourism is obviously a big one. Lots of people like to visit, especially in the summertime, which is when this picture was taken. But also other things is government. You can see the Parliament buildings there. So all the main ministries for the province of British Columbia are based there. Universities, so my university, the University of Victoria, also Royal Roads University, which we'll talk about, and a college as well, Camosun College. And the military, so the Royal Canadian Navy has their Pacific Naval Base in Victoria, because it's on the ocean, of course. So the military is also a big part of the local economy. A little bit of history here. We can see a painting here of HMS Discovery, which was a British Royal Navy vessel in the late 1700s. So I'll explain why that's significant in a moment. But first, I'll talk about the first peoples, or the indigenous peoples of Vancouver Island, including Victoria, and that is the Coast Salish people. And we have a picture here. It's a replica of a Coast Salish longhouse, which is a house they made out of cedar, and it includes their magnificent artwork, as we can see in this image, and totem poles and other carvings and paintings. So the Coast Salish are, like I said, the indigenous peoples of the area. They lived in British Columbia and also Washington State for thousands of years before European colonists arrived. And the traditional Coast Salish way of life, so how they lived pre-European contact, involved fishing, hunting, and trading with other indigenous peoples. And as you can see here, they fashioned these magnificent boats, canoes. Again, another picture of a longhouse here that's actually right in downtown Victoria, and totem pole. So they're world famous for their artistry. You can see these beautiful carvings and paintings here, as well as other things. Their Cowichan sweaters, also very famous for their unique designs to their culture. And also, because they're so well known and so beautiful, a lot of these pieces are very expensive. So if you go to places in Victoria, like tourist shops and galleries, you can purchase some of this artwork, but bring your wallet or make sure your credit card has a high limit, because some of this is very valuable. Okay, now moving on to kind of European and other settlers. British colonization, as you can guess from the name, British Columbia, City of Victoria, was kind of crucial to the founding of the city. And they focused on furs, so furs from animals, gold, and then other kind of industries popped up as the city grew. Captain Cook and Captain Vancouver, after whom the island is named and after whom the city of Vancouver is named, they were British explorers, and they claimed the area for Britain because at the time European powers were traveling all over the world to claim chunks of the globe for themselves. And the company, the Hudson's Bay Company, who you may know now operates department stores in Canada, but back then their main business was fur trading. So talking about beavers, beaver pelts, beaver fur, and other furs from other animals were traded because at the time, a lot of people in Europe were heavy fur coats during the winter. So again, very valuable. The Hudson's Bay Company established their Pacific headquarters in the region in Victoria at 1843. And the British Royal Navy also built the large naval dockyard, which the Royal Canadian Navy now uses. So Vancouver Island, not the mainland, but just the island, was established as a colony in 1849, and you can see the flag of the colony there. So it was its own colony for a while. It wasn't part of BC yet. And most of the colonists came mainly from Britain, but also the United States and what is now Eastern Canada, so Ontario, Quebec, and the Maritime provinces. But also, interestingly, a lot of people came from China. So there were many Chinese settlers who started living in the Victoria area, and they established a Chinatown, which is the second oldest Chinatown in North America. The oldest is in San Francisco. It's a few years older, not much older, but the second oldest is actually in Victoria, and it's right downtown. It's a really neat place to visit. I'll show you. I think I have a picture later I can show you. So for those of you who don't understand the scale of Canada, British Columbia is very far away from Ontario. In fact, when Rachel and I, my wife, we moved here, it took us 6 days to drive across from Victoria, take the ferry, drove all the way across BC and the prairies through Thunder Bay. Nice town, Ryan, I liked it, and into southern Ontario. It took 6 days, very long time. And my wife was 6 months pregnant too, so she had the patience of a saint, I think. So yeah, I think it's like 4,500 or 4,700 kilometers. Very, very big country. So back then, when there were no roads, there were no highways, there were no cars, it felt even further. It would take months to travel by horseback. So why was British Columbia, which seemed like a world away, why did it join Canada? Well, we're going to talk about that a little bit. First, Vancouver Island and BC were united into a single colony in 1866, just to make governing the area easier. But it's around that time that the new Dominion of Canada, so what we now think of as Eastern Canada, asked BC to join so they could have a Pacific outlet, an outlet to the Pacific Ocean for this brand new country. And BC had to be persuaded a little bit. So the Canadian government, the Dominion government, promised to build a railway to British Columbia, which back then was a huge undertaking. And they also promised to take over the colony's debt, so that was nice. And this convinced BC to join Canada in 1871. Victoria became the new capital. So now that you understand briefly of some of the history, we'll talk about some of the sights and sounds in downtown Victoria and around the inner harbor. So, sorry, I'm kind of getting told that my internet connection's unstable. So if you don't catch something I said, please let me know. So yeah, so this is a picture of downtown Victoria and the inner harbor. As you can see, this is pre-COVID time, probably one of our warm summer nights there. Lots of people would congregate downtown for festivals and holidays. So it's a really beautiful place to see. And prominently, you probably saw in these pictures, are these two buildings. So Victoria is very well known for its stately architecture. So what are these two buildings? The building on your left, that is the Empress Hotel. And the Empress Hotel is what we call a railway hotel, which are all across Canada, including in Toronto and Ottawa. They have these big grand hotels that the railways built, and Victoria was no exception. And also on the right, we have the Parliament building. So they're both done in either like a neo-Gothic or Romanesque architecture, which was very popular at the time. It's kind of common throughout Canada. And these two buildings in particular were designed by Francis Rattenbury. He was an English colonist, but he designed these buildings. The Parliament buildings opened in 1898, while the Empress Hotel opened in 1908. So they were built close together, and a lot of tourists come just to see these two buildings. And what's nice about the Parliament buildings is you see all these beautiful lights that they light them up. That's not just for Christmas time. They have those lights on the buildings all year long, and so it makes a great photo as well. So those two are some of the neat sites to see downtown, but there are others as well. We have Beacon Hill Park, which is a large park near downtown, kind of, again, considering the time the city was built, done in that Victorian kind of natural style. So it's a very big, beautiful park, has a children's petting zoo, which obviously the kids love. There's also like lawn bowling and croquet and cricket pitches. So again, kind of all these English sports that people like to enjoy. Chinatown, I mentioned that second oldest in North America. That's the Gates of Harmonious Interest. So that's those gates are not that old. They were built in the 1980s. But that's kind of the ceremonial entrance to Chinatown. So there's lots of Chinese groceries, Chinese medicine stores, Chinese restaurants. There's a historic Chinese school. So it's a really neat place to visit to see examples of Chinese culture in North America. And there's also the Emily Carr House. So for people that don't know, Emily Carr is a famous Canadian artist. Lived in the early 1900s. And she's connected with a group of 7, which is a group of well-known Canadian artists. But she was born and raised in Victoria. And a lot of her paintings are based on scenes in around Victoria, including scenes of the Indigenous people's culture in the area. And she was a little bit of an eccentric. She had a pet monkey that she kept. Frequently, when she was walking around the city, the monkey would kind of sit on her shoulder. So an interesting lady, but very neat paintings. Some other things to see, we have the Royal British Columbia Museum, which is again right downtown next to the Parliament buildings. Inside they have a replica of what the city looked like a city block back during the gold rush time, so late 1800s, early 1900s. They also have that replica longhouse, as well as other neat museums and an IMAX theater, so it's a really neat place to visit. As well, with all that beautiful Pacific Ocean nearby, there's whale watching opportunities, so you can take a whale watching tour and go out in one of these boats, and they put you in a big kind of survival suit because the water's a little cold, in case you fell off, but thankfully that doesn't happen often. But you can see orcas, which are killer whales, as well as humpback whales, porpoises, dolphins. So it's a really neat opportunity if you're visiting, as well as Fisherman's Wharf. So if you like fresh seafood, you can buy some fresh fish at Fisherman's Wharf. And what's neat about there is that a lot of people live on houseboats. So their house rather, is an actual boat floating in the water. So that's really cool. And fresh fish and chips, delicious. And because of that English influence, the craft beer and pub culture is a big part of the city. Those of you that know me well know I like my craft beer. So Victoria is a great place if you enjoy craft beer and you enjoy going to the pub, and some really great pubs there. If you're ever looking for recommendations, you know where to find me. So yeah, that's kind of the city of Victoria right downtown. For the last few minutes, I'll talk about what we call Greater Victoria, and then further up island, Vancouver Island as well. So there's the compact downtown area, and then there's other cities and municipalities nearby in the Greater Victoria area. including in this place, which is Hatley Park, which has this beautiful old mansion, which is called Hatley Castle, and it has some unique history. So Hatley Park was built near Victoria in a suburb called Colwood by the wealthy Dunsmuir family. They were from Scotland in 1905, and they had established a lot of coal mines on the island at the time. But what's neat about Hatley Park is during World War II, the Canadian government bought it as an emergency residence for the royal family, the British royal family, because there was a worry that at the time that England might be invaded by Germany and they might have to evacuate the royal family. So the Canadian government actually bought Hatley Park from the Dunsmuirs. The royal family could potentially live there. Thankfully, the royal family didn't have to evacuate, so the Canadian government turned it into the military college, Royal Roads Military College, and it stayed as a military college until 1995. Until then, it was turned into a private university called Royal Roads University, which has MBA programs and a management program. So if you're ever interested in that area, Royal Roads could potentially be an option for you. So yeah, these are pictures I actually took on my family and I's last holiday to Victoria. That's my wife, Rachel, and our daughter, Adelaide there. Beautiful grounds, beautiful gardens, which at the time we were allowed to visit for free. So if you're ever in the area, I encourage you to visit to Hatley Park. But if you do like your gardens, there's also the Butchart Gardens, which are a world famous attraction in the area. Butchart Gardens were created by the Butchart family, who are originally from Ontario, actually, not too far from Waterloo. They had built this limestone quarry to create, because they were doing all this building in Victoria at the time, they needed cement and concrete. But once the quarry was depleted, Mrs. Butchart had a great idea to turn it into these beautiful gardens, which they called after their own family, the Butchart Gardens, which they opened to visitors in 1921. And now people from all over the world come to see these beautiful gardens. And during the day, you can, of course, stroll around the gardens. There's a beautiful carousel that the children can play on. And also, in the British tradition, they serve afternoon tea. So if you like your tea and scones, it's a great place to go. And at nighttime, during the summer, they also have nightly firework displays every week. So if you like fireworks, it's a great place to visit too. Further up island, if you were to drive from Victoria to the tip of Vancouver Island in the northwest at Port Hardy, it would take about 8-9 hours. So like I said, it's a big island. There's some other neat attractions. So up in the top right, we have the Comox Glacier and skiing. So I mentioned Victoria is quite mild, but if you get up further into the mountains on Vancouver Island, they get a lot of snow actually. And there's actually a glacier there. And there's a nearby ski area called Mount Washington. So if you like skiing, it's a great place to visit. There's the famous West Coast Trail, which was originally built to save people who had been shipwrecked on the west coast of the island, but now people travel from all over the world to hike the West Coast Trail. And as you can see, it's quite challenging in many places. So you have to be in really good shape. The Parksville Qualicum Beach area is a little bit further north, just north of Nanaimo, actually, of Nanaimo bar fame. Parksville and Qualicum Beach have beautiful giant beaches that when the tide goes out, you can walk out for about a mile, so about 1.5 kilometers. And when the tide comes in, it's very shallow. So it's a great place for children to play in the water in the summertime, and because it's shallow, it's pretty warm. And then finally on the left here, we have Tofino and Ucluelet, which is on the west coast, and it's right on unsheltered from the Pacific Ocean. So you get these massive waves coming in, so it's popular for surfing. And in the wintertime, people actually take vacations called storm watching, because the island gets these big winter storms, which are very windy, and these massive waves come in on the shore. And people like to watch them from the safety of their cozy, warm hotel room, watch the big waves come in. So as you can see, the island itself has lots of beautiful scenery and beautiful attractions. So it's a wonderful part of the world, and it's near and dear to my heart. We try to go back when we're able. So when travel restrictions are lifted, we'll hopefully see you on the island. I encourage you all to visit.
Amazing. Thank you, AJ. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That was so cool just to be able to see all the spots. And it's always so amazing to me that there's so much you can do on the island, because you think of Canada and you look at the image of Canada on a map, and the island's big there, but it's still small compared to the rest of the country. And so it's still amazing how much you can engage, how much you can do, how much you can see. So thank you for giving us such an awesome view of all of that. That's incredible. Thank you. Does anyone have questions for AJ before we move on to Manitoba? Feel free to put them in the chat if there's anything you're curious about, anything you would like to know. AJ will be happy to help answer them. And of course, because we know AJ as our student advisor, you can always send him a WeChat or WhatsApp message even after today if you want to ask him any questions about his experience on Vancouver Island or Victoria. So you know where to reach AJ. We're going to now, we have, oh, Beth has a quick question. Is it very expensive living in Victoria, AJ? He's like, yes. It's not the most cheapest place, if I'm right. Is that right, AJ? No?
Yeah, it's there's a funny saying that another thing BC stands for is bring cash. So it's not cheap. So it's a little bit of a hard place to raise a family, which is partly why Southwestern Ontario appealed to us, because at the time it was a little bit more friendly with the pocketbook, we should say, in terms of raising a family. So you can get more for your money in terms of house and whatnot in Ontario compared to Victoria. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Awesome, friends. Well, we have one more guest speaker for all of you today. And so I hope you can stick around with us for the next few minutes here as we warmly welcome Aaron McMahon from Travel Manitoba. Welcome, Aaron. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, and thank you very much for welcoming me. Sorry about the time change issue, and AJ for going ahead of me. I appreciate that there.
No problem. Thank you so much. And so, Aaron, you're going to walk us through the province of Manitoba today and what it has. Did you have anything you wanted to share screen to do?
Yeah.
Hopefully have access. Feel free to post it up there. Awesome.
Sounds good. Everybody can see that?
That looks good to me.
Lovely, lovely.
Thanks so much. And so welcome.
Thank you so much, and very happy to be here. So yeah, again, thank you to Ryan and Jenny and the rest of their team for inviting me, as well as organizing this session. I hope you folks enjoy what I have to talk about. So I'll just get right to it. So I'm really excited to have the opportunity to share Manitoba with you folks and let you see where Canada's hard to beat. The experiences are wild, they're breathtaking and limitless in Manitoba, and it offers surprising opportunities for visitors looking for adventure and to get off the beaten track. So a little introduction, my name is Aaron McMahon. I have been with Travel Manitoba for over 4 years now. And yeah, I look forward to showing you some of my favorite things to see and do. And if you have any questions after the presentation, I'll send my email over to Ryan as well. You can always ask me questions even after the presentation is done and over with there. So for those who are not familiar with Manitoba, we are located at the geographical center of North America. We're bordered by Saskatchewan to the west and Ontario, where Waterloo is there, to the east. Nunavut is just north of us. And then to the south in the US or the United States, we have North Dakota and Minnesota. And it's also home to 5 distinct eco zones, which allows for a diverse amount of terrain, wildlife, and a lot of different unique experiences as well. Now, a couple of fun facts about Manitoba. So first off, we have Churchill, town of Churchill in northern Manitoba is the polar bear capital of the world, as well as close to Churchill, there are over 58,000 belugas that come into the Hudson's Bay yearly. And as long as we have clear skies, you can get roughly 300 nights of northern lights per year due to the vast open skies we have here in Manitoba. Did you know that Winnie the Pooh was actually named after Winnipeg? So Lieutenant Harry Colburn bought a bear cub for $20 while serving in World War I. He named her Winnie after his hometown of Winnipeg. And when he left, he gave her to the London Zoo, where Christopher Robin saw her and named his teddy bear after her. As well as we have a little James Bond connection. So the inspiration for James Bond was a famous World War II spy called Sir William Stevenson. You can see a statue on the right there, and who happened to be born and raised in Winnipeg. Now, our journey through the province begins in Winnipeg. So as a hip, multicultural city, the capital of Manitoba inspires that diversity, creativity, and a very trendy culinary scene. So the province's capital, Winnipeg, is a perfect blend of urban metropolis, lively charm, and proximity to endless nature. The city's neighborhood offer an exciting mix of architecture, shopping, cultural experiences, and culinary surprises. So with a population of roughly 780,000, Winnipeg is home to more than 50 ethnic groups. We have numerous festivals, powwows, art exhibitions, music events, and offer countless opportunities for the urban explorer. Now, with its distinct architecture, the Canadian Museum for Human Rights is an icon defining Winnipeg's skyline. So as Canada's first national museum outside the capital of Ottawa, the Canadian Museum for Human Rights uses thought-provoking interactive exhibits to highlight different perspectives of human rights. The way it's designed is the lower levels are all kind of darker, kind of calling to some of the genocides that have happened over the years. As you climb up the ramps, ending up with the Tower of Hope, as you can kind of see in the middle there, that kind of has the light signifying the moving from the Dark Ages to Enlightenment. Now, experience Manitoba's North without even leaving the city at the Journey to Churchill exhibit in the Assiniboine Park Zoo. So this exhibit offers a sneak peek of what you could expect to see in Churchill, including those polar bears. So there's a Leatherdale International Polar Bear Conservation Center as well, which offers insight on some of the current polar bear research that is going on around the world as well. So this exhibit is home to many different Arctic wildlife, including wolves, Arctic fox, muskox, seals, snowy owls, and of course, polar bears. Now, a bison safari in the middle of the big city, a rural oasis within city limits. Whether you're exploring a sod house from the pioneer days or exploring indigenous culture, voyageur canoeing, or tobogganing in the winter, you can even enjoy some dark skies presentations. Fort Whyte Alive is an incredible location to explore the nature inside the city. Next, we have the Okemik Marsh, which is a very popular bird sanctuary located in the middle of marshland, which is roughly 30 minutes north of Winnipeg. You can see a Canadian goose migration with thousands of birds landing on the lake every day, whether at sunset or early in sunrise. You can participate in research as well with a bird in the hand, as you can see on the right there by a teammate of mine. It's called bird banding. So it helps a lot with the research of different migration patterns for different species of birds, as well as the infamous Canadian goose. Now, the Royal Canadian Mint is one of two facilities. One is in Ottawa, and we are blessed in Winnipeg to have one of those facilities here. Now, it has incredible architecture, daily tours, and a chance to view production of coins produced not just for Canada, but for actually 80 countries around the world. So you can actually take a moment and see how the coins are produced with color, and they even use now a glow-in-the-dark technology, which is one of a kind, and first here in Winnipeg. Next, we have the Manitoba Museum. So with a focus on people and nature, the museum takes you on a journey through millions of years from the dinosaur era all the way to the early 1920s when Winnipeg had its first economic boom, leading to some of that interesting architecture I mentioned earlier. But you can definitely travel through some Manitoba's vast and varied landscapes throughout the museum and get a good overview of Manitoba back in the day as well as currently. Now, the Forks is renovated railway warehouses and stables, which now house a marketplace, complete with a boutique hotel, bar, restaurants, and shops with local makers. So this National Historic Site is where the two rivers meet and is a trendy meeting place to date. In summer, you can explore the waterways via a water taxi or walking along the trails along the river. In winter, you can don a pair of skates and skate on Canada's longest natural skating trail, complete with warming huts, ice bars, and unique pop-up restaurants that'll entertain you along the way. Now, in the French Quarter of Winnipeg is one of the largest Francophone communities west of Quebec. So in February, you can actually experience one of the largest winter and French Canadian festivals in Canada called the Festival de Voyageurs. And there's also a lot of other different culinary experiences to learn more about the Métis experiences, as well as the French cultural experiences here in Winnipeg. Now, next we're going to head up north to Churchill. So Churchill is remote even by Canadian standards. So this frontier town stands on the banks of the Hudson's Bay in northern Manitoba. It's roughly 1,000 kilometers from Winnipeg, and it cannot be reached by car as there are no roads to this small community. So you can only be reached by plane or train. And as mentioned earlier, it is the polar bear capital of the world, with roughly the same amount of polar bears as there are humans in the area. There's actually 58,000 belugas that swim into the bay every year that I mentioned earlier as well. And due to its position in the Aurora Oval, you have a chance of seeing northern lights during 300 nights of the year. There's also a polar bear marathon, which I love. So this is actually where contestants, they must run in pairs and also be followed by a vehicle just to ensure their safety in case they do come into contact with either polar bears or wolves in the town of Churchill and around and surrounding area. And there's also a polar bear detention center where bears who roam into the town go to ensure that they do not continuously roam into the town in search for food. And this is for the safety of visitors and for residents as well. And then there's an Arctic Research Center that studies a wide variety of environmental and wildlife programs, which is quite neat to take in itself. So get ready to expand your bucket list with the next couple of slides here. Now, so the summer tundra boasts belugos and polar bears, with the western Hudson Bay being home to, like I said, over 58,000 beluga whales every summer in July and August. More than 5,000 of these friendly marine mammals come to the Churchill River and the Seal River estuaries to feed, mate, and give birth to their young. So the Churchill visitors can watch the playful whales in many different ways. On a boat tour, you can listen to the chirping of the belugas via hydrophone, or get close to the curious animals in a zodiac. You can jump on a kayak to observe the pod at a water level, and the whales swim around the kayaks, ready to share their friendly beluga smile, as they are naturally curious creatures in themselves, so they always want to see what's going on in the waters surrounding them. You can even try stand-up paddleboarding, or even try yoga on the bay with the belugas as well. And sometimes they do yoga on the paddleboards, which is quite neat as well. Now, aqua gliding is our newest feature. So you can think of a lily pad lying down with your face in the water. And the belugas are naturally curious. As you can see in the photo there, they'll kind of come up just to see what exactly you are doing. Polar bears can also be spotted along the coast of the Hudson's Bay at this time. So the bears spend the summer months leisurely lumbering around on land and cooling off in the refreshing water of the bay. It's located south of Churchill, Wiplusk National Park. It is home to one of the most important polar bear denning areas in the world. And in the summer months, up to 1,000 polar bears roam throughout the park. Now here's a lovely shot of a bear in fireweed, which blooms at the end of July for only about 2 weeks. But it is a perfect time for any of those professional or amateur photographers looking to get that great wildlife shot. Now, every fall, hundreds of polar bears migrate from their summer habitat on the tundra to the shores of the Hudson Bay, waiting for the bay to freeze. After the long summer months, the bears are eager to return to the ice to hunt for seals. So in October and November, visitors from all over the world come to Churchill, the polar bear capital of the world, to witness the life-changing experience of viewing polar bears. Tucked safely inside a specially designed tundra vehicle, your heart will begin to beat faster when the world's largest land predator slowly approaches. For a truly unique adventure, you can stay in a remote mobile lodge located on the coast. At the end of an exciting day, you'll be counting polar bears in your sleep rather than sheep. Now, there are many experiences available, from viewing other wildlife to dog sledding, as Northern Lights I mentioned, and enjoying some of the great food and company on those large tundra vehicles. And you also get a tour of Churchill. So depending on the level of adventure that you're looking for, the tour might be a simple introduction to give guests the lay of the land, or it will be a more in-depth town and area tour that includes stops around the town. And you can take a look at the polar bear holding facility, as well as the Itzanitak Museum. Now, polar bear viewing experiences in Manitoba include walking safaris, helicopters, and airplane tours. But most people who visit Churchill in October and November view polar bears from that specially designed heated tundra vehicle. So this is a once-in-a-lifetime experience, unlike anything else anywhere in the world, and considered the best opportunity in the world to see polar bears in their natural environment. For something completely different, you can participate in a walking safari. So you can fly into a remote lodge and enjoy world-class culinary and wildlife viewing experiences. Now in February and March in Churchill is the start of the year with breathtaking light shows. So you can get cold, clear, dark nights set the stage for the magical dance of the Northern Lights located under the Aurora Oval. Churchill is one of the best places to view Northern Lights, or otherwise known as the Aurora Borealis. And with the right conditions, the Northern Lights are visible in Churchill for up to 300 nights of the year. There are many ways to view the Northern Lights, from the Aurora domes featured in the top right-hand side to staying in a yurt overnight. And this is a great time to join a photography tour, go dog sledding, check out some of the Parks Canada sites and other Indigenous experiences in the area. Here's a nice, great shot of the yurt under the Northern Lights. Again, a really unique experience here in Manitoba, has kind of a cultural significance to it as well. You can even enjoy a culinary event under the Northern Lights at Dan's Diner. It's a 5-star experience for those who are foodies or like to take in some great food and drink. Now, the great thing about Churchill is it's so remote that there is no light pollution to interview with any of the dancing colors in the sky, making it perfect to experience those once-in-a-lifetime natural light shows. Just kind of that wrap up some of the highlights of Manitoba. You can walk with polar bears up in Churchill, kayak alongside belugas, dine under the Northern Lights. You can visit the Canadian Museum for Human Rights, as well as take in Winnipeg's vibrant arts, culture, and culinary delights. So thank you all for listening, and I can take the time here for some questions.
Thank you, Aaron. That was amazing. Wow. I often think of Manitoba, to be honest, as kind of the secret gem a little bit of Canada, because there are so many beautiful naturistic sites, places to visit, a lot of history, but it sometimes flies under the radar. I'd love to hear, Aaron, from you, just what, as someone who lives in Manitoba, what do you feel is your favorite thing about life in Manitoba?
I think Manitoba is great just because we have all 4 seasons. So you can visually kind of see all 4 seasons, snow in the winter, hot summers, the beautiful fall colors in the trees. Spring, we have many flowers and lots of orchards and that sort of thing as well. So it's really diverse. We have the history, as I said, in 1920s or in the early 1900s, we had a huge economic boom. We had the most millionaires per capita. So a lot of that old style architecture, it's really quite beautiful just to kind of look around downtown in the Exchange area in Winnipeg. And then, like I said, we're in the middle of so many different eco zones. So there's a lot of different ecosystems and different diverse geographies that we have something for everybody here. So it is quite neat because every day is something new. So yeah.
That's amazing. Thank you. Yeah. Wow. I'm blown away. As someone, I grew up in Thunder Bay originally, and so it's not too far from, a couple hours away from the border to Manitoba there. And so there'd be times where I get to go visit in Winnipeg, but I felt like maybe I only went shopping. So my memory was going to Manitoba, going to Winnipeg to go shopping. And so now I'm like, I need to go back just to actually see everything else, right? Shopping is just a small little thing in Winnipeg.
Exactly. And it's grown so much over the years as well. So I'm not sure when the last time you were here, but yeah, things are constantly changing. We actually have a new Inuit art center called Kamayuk as well that opened up in the Winnipeg Art Gallery, an internationally known art gallery, as well as a lot of different theater aspects and ballets and that sort of thing with the Royal Winnipeg Ballet and the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra and that sort of thing as well. So lots of ton of festivals in summer as well. So it's great. Yeah. I'm glad you're able to enjoy it and some of the shopping as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Are there questions, friends, that anybody has for Aaron before we wrap up today? Give you a few seconds if you need to type anything in the chat, or if you'd like to turn on your microphone or camera.
I had a question for Aaron.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Aaron, great presentation, by the way, very cool.
Thank you.
How long does it take, because you said that you can either take the plane or take the train from southern Manitoba up to Churchill. How long would it take from like Winnipeg area?
So that's what's interesting. So from Winnipeg to take the train to Churchill, it's roughly 36 hours or so. So it does take quite a while. So there are sleeper trains there, but you can also drive up to Thompson, which is about an 8-hour drive from here. And then from there, it'll be about a 10-hour train trip. And then of course you can take the plane which a lot of folks choose, and that's about an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending if they have to stop into Nunavut or not. Sometimes it'll be about 4 hours long, but yeah, for the most part, it's about an hour and a half to 2 hours.
Okay, very cool. Thank you.
Okay, welcome. Thanks.
I hope for many of our international friends that are listening, Canada is enormous. It is a huge country. And so you hear, to travel, even just within Manitoba, how long it can take just to get from one part of the province to the other. I went to visit in China a few years ago, and they have a bullet train in China. And so I keep saying, I'm like, we need to bring the bullet train to Canada, because it would definitely support with being able to do ground travel so much faster within our provinces. Need it for such a big country and large provinces like ours. So that would be my dream someday.
A lot of people comment on the vastness of Canada, and not so much kind of the emptiness, but the beautiful kind of scenery as you can kind of drive along from coast to coast. And yeah, we actually get quite a few from visitors who just comment like, we just went an hour without seeing a town, like amazing. And it's just that large of a country. So yeah, it's funny you say that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Any other questions today before we wrap up, friends? Awesome. Okay. If I don't see any other questions, I do have one last poll question to ask everybody for today. And if you were really listening to Aaron's presentation, he actually gave you the answer. So you should hopefully know this. I want to ask everyone about the Royal Canadian Mint, because the Royal Canadian Mint, as Aaron said, has a branch in Winnipeg, which produces money for Canada, but it has also produced currency for how many other countries? About 20, about 80, 50, or 15? Put your answer in the poll and see if you're correct. I'll tell you in a moment. Let's see if you remember what Aaron shared. We got 4 votes so far. And don't worry, the poll is anonymous, so I will not know if you got it wrong, so don't be scared. I won't call you out. Awesome. I'll give you about 10 more seconds. All right. So I'll end the polling here now. I think we got the last vote in there. And it looks like people listened. So about 80 different countries are represented in terms of currency that has been produced at the Royal Canadian Mint in Manitoba. And I actually found, I'm going to put it in the chat for you if you want to look later, friends. There's a cool website that actually lists what money had been produced there. And so I see China's represented. I see Panama represented. We have some of our Panamanian students here today. So you should definitely check it out to see what money from home might have been produced there in Winnipeg, Manitoba. That's right, great. So with that said, we now are coming back to wrapping up today's trip. Thank you to our amazing guest speakers. Aaron, thank you for all your time and for coming to share your insight of Manitoba. To AJ for introducing us to the beautiful Vancouver Island. And of course, Nicole, who is here with us to talk about Ottawa today. I hope my call of action for you today is to think about, where would you want to visit if you could tomorrow? What's one place or area or spot that you would definitely want to go visit? And hopefully maybe when you do make it to Canada, when COVID is over and we can travel more freely across our beautiful country, that I hope you make it onto your wish list, or we call it a bucket list in English, of your dream place you would love to go and visit someday. And I hope one of our destinations we introduced you today is added to your bucket list of places to travel. So thank you again, everyone. I really appreciate the time that you spent with us, and I hope you've enjoyed your trip. And I wish everyone a great rest of your day. Thanks again, Aaron and AJ, Nicole. Much appreciated, friends. Awesome. Thanks, friends. We will see you all soon.